You were talking to me earlier, Owen Harts. What do you think of that whole tragedy and the show continuing on after the death?
It was horrible. I mean, the show continuing on was a bad decision. But again, who prepares for that? I mean, I don't have like, I think they made a huge mistake. I think that for the image of wrestling at the time, and everyone's forgotten, it's not a long-term thing, but at the time, I would see people and they go, I can't believe they kept the show going after the guy died. And it's like, it was the wrong decision to make. I think that if it happened now, they would stop the show for sure. But, like they had no prerequisite over it. And I think I got mad because they kept trying to defend it and saying, if we stopped the show, people would riot. And I was like, they stop baseball games for rain and nobody riots. They stop. You know what I mean? It's like, there was something. It wasn't
happened. Really a great pay-per-view either, was it? I can't even remember what the main event.
It was.
Was it over the edge?
It was over the edge, and I don't even remember. The whole show was a blur after that anyway. But so I think them defending it now. It's like, no, I don't buy your defense. But now, it's like I did understand that you're not prepared, and Vince is so single-minded and all that. And I understand it, disagree with it.
You were the best man at Owen's wedding, too. Right?
Yeah, and he was best man at mine, too. But, yeah, it pissed me off. I don't want to digress into talking about the Owen tragedy, but that whole thing was kind of a shame in so many ways because they never reused him right anyway, and I heard they were maybe planning on starting to use him better after that, but he had been there for about 8 years. It was kind of like an earlier day version of Daniel Bryan, where he had all the charisma, all the athletic ability, everything else. And they used him in a steady succession of horseshit roles with high energy, with Coco Beware and with Neidhart with those, checkerboard,
balloon
ugly
pants,
lime green pants, and all this other, none of which really did him, justice. If they just let him be like a Daniel Bryan or something like that, he would have been a phenomenal talent for him. And at the end, it was a shame that he got killed doing some horseshit stunt that had nothing to do with wrestling, just for some a-hole moron scriptwriter or some asshole wants somebody to come to the ring on a fucking cable as a bird or just bullshit. If you had Wayne Gretzky or a Michael Jordan, dying doing some stupid thing like that, there'd be people saying, this is bullshit, it was just a shame,
Bro, I get tweets to these days, you killed Owen Hart. To this day, I get tweets about how I killed Owen Hart. How that happened, bro, is that show was written. It was done. I was in my office, it was probably Thursday night before the pay-per-view. And I'm just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, making sure we got everything. My phone rings, and it was our director of operations. The guy's name was Steve Taylor. Steve Taylor had been at the WWE forever. I think he works at MSG now, but he was there from the beginning with Vince. And Steve Taylor called me, and he goes to me, Vince, the guys who repel Sting are coming to the pay-per-view in Kansas City, and they want to know if there's anything they could do, on the show to show us what they can do because they want to work with us. So is there anything on the show that they could do? So at that point, I literally got the show in front of me, and I said, let me look. So I'm looking through the show. I see Owen is the Blue Blazer. So I said, well, Steve, this might be something. I said, Owen's the Blue Blazer. I said, if we repel Owen like they repel Sting, I said, it'll be good for Owen. I said, it'll give Owen a big star, type of feel. I said,
and he was going to win the belt in that match.
Yeah, I said that'll probably work. So, Steve said, great, no problem, So, bro, at that point, I don't know who related to Owen. I don't know how that happened, but this I do know. That day, at the coffee urn, I seen Owen in his jumpsuit, okay? He had already rehearsed it. So Owen was there getting coffee, and I went to Owen. I said, Owen, how'd everything go in rehearsal? How was everything? Owen said to me, Vince, everything was cool, no problem. He said, but I want to ask, can you make one change for me? I said, what is it, Owen? And he goes, the way you have it written right now, the Godfather goes out first, then I rappel down. He said, Vince, it's going to take me a while to get my harness off. He goes, if I'm there trying to get my harness off, why isn't the Godfather pummeling me? He goes, can you just flip the entrances for me? And I said, oh, and that makes all the sense in the world. I said, no problem, we'll flip the entrances, okay? Bro, never at any time did he say, Vince, I'm uncomfortable with this. Vince, I'm afraid of heights. Vince, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. Nothing. Zero. That was not important to the script. That show was written without that rappel. That rappel was added by request. That was the only reason. If I would have thought for a second, or Owen would have indicated for a second, a fear of heights, a fear of doing it, I feel uncomfortable, whatever, it would have never happened.
I can't tell you the information. I said, from all I found out is it's a real tragedy what happened, and one of three people actually really know what happened, because I guess there was a total of 3 people up in the scaffolding. Owen Hart was one of those 3, so there's only 2 people left that actually probably know what really went down in that. Getting to know Owen, at first I heard different things, just from different people. But but just to me, it's like I never go by hearsay. I like to see what people actually what materializes. He's a character, kind of a dry sense of humor. He liked to kind of just pull little pranks upon people, things of that nature. I mean, I enjoyed being, there was a couple times that we were tag team partners, and I really enjoyed doing that against Blackman and Kent. So I mean, to me, I could really see a sense of humor and how. Sometimes he had a hard time keeping that straight face, because he was enjoying so much being that character. When the crowd would start to boo. I swear, when the crowd would start to boo him, he loved it the most at that point in time. And when they were doing those angles of getting the one comedian come out dressed like him, the young man that had the big nose and stuff like this, and doing saying the same lines and challenging him, you could always see that Owen had a hard time just keeping a straight face while the magic of professional wrestling was taking place. And that's what it was. Those were magical moments.
Vince apparently offered my father $93 million for the entire settlement, without court, without delay, without adverse publicity. And Brett, who was maybe within reason hot at Vince for screwing him, and Vince and Sean and whoever else, the referee, possibly some of Vince's in-laws, screwing him on the finish in Montreal. But my dad actually said the promoter signs the check, and if the promoter wants you to put his crippled grandmother over 2 straight falls, you should say yes, sir. And at the funeral, when Brett saw my dad talking to Vince, and moments later shaking hands with Vince, he and the lawyer and Martha and Keith came running up, and they said, you don't talk to him, you talk to these lawyers. And they, through Brett, convinced my parents that they should not take this settlement, work with Martha, and we'll get way more money, and plus Vince will be buried in the process. Well, Vince wasn't buried in the Montreal screw job, and Vince wasn't buried with the Owen deal. So in the end, we got $2 million for the Hart family, and Martha got something like $30 million divided 3 ways for the children, for the lawyers, and herself. But out of that $2 million, the legal fees, as promised, were not paid, so we had to pay that out of our own end of that $2 million. And then when you divide that with 10 surviving children, it doesn't amount to very much. So anyway, I would, instead of inheriting $3 million each, my brothers and I inherited about 1/10 of that each. And so anyway, Martha and Brett, they're the affluent ones in the family.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.